notes, Texas is probably 1 and 1A with Georgia. Doesn't mean Florida State hasn't added some, and there will be others when it comes to the transfer portal. Jabbar Muhammad, not yet, but the prediction that's coming down from On3 is he's headed to Texas. Now, what we had been told, or what had been reported, rather, is that he was going to visit Texas, he was going to visit Alabama, and there might have been one other school he was going to visit, but that came down yesterday evening. I have not yet seen anything to confirm that he is yet committed, but usually those crystal balls or somebody made a call to one of those sites or someone that covers recruiting or covers a team.
Well, he is visiting Alabama today. He is keeping that promise to his his former coach in Kalen DeBoer, who might be his next coach, to take that visit. But he's a Texan. Most people think that he's coming back to Texas. But, maybe he goes to Tuscaloosa and falls in love. I don't know. He fell in love with Lubbock. He fell in love with Seattle. So he's got a wide variety of tastes, Jabbar Muhammad.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the easier predictions to make, all due respect, just because of the fact that you've got the brother of said guy sitting right there on the team.
Yeah.
And the Texas connection, and that just seems, like a logical landing spot for the reasons that I mentioned. I'm sure a multitude of other reasons, just the fact that Texas is an attractive program, et cetera. So, yeah, that's the one team I've heard mentioned for him from the very outset, and that seems to be where he's laser focused on, or the focus is on him and Texas. But who knows what I guess Alabama could offer or whatnot, but I'm pretty sure Texas can match anything, and they've got the family side of things. So, they're cleaning up in the transfer portal. They'll continue to. He'll likely be a part of that transfer portal class for Steve Sarkisian. At how much longer it takes to get that done, I don't imagine it'll take too much longer. But if he were to throw a curveball, then that would definitely be interesting. We'll be talking about his decision one way or the other because it'll be a big decision. But, I'd imagine he lands in Austin. That just seems to make the most sense.
And because of, remember, who was on their staff when some of these young men were being recruited, his connection to Alabama, Steve Sarkisian, and Texas end up with the tight end, Amari Niblick, out of Texas. Really very productive, a guy that Nick Saban raved about, especially in the last year. So they get another tight end. So they do lose a lot to the next level, and yet they have also recouped a lot of talent to the next level. And that's what the transfer portal can help you do, and other teams are doing that too. But it seems like they probably have been, I would say, Texas, Georgia, FSU's done well, but I don't think FSU has the names yet overall that both Georgia and Texas have had.
Yeah. Norvell is going for quantity. Not that it's not quality. He's not just like taking anybody that was there. Like if you ate lunch in Tuscaloosa a year ago, he's going to be like, come on, you know something. But I do think that with Texas and Georgia particularly, they have the ability right now, being who they are and what it feels weird saying a 13-0 team doesn't have the juice to do that. But, I'm not foolish enough to think that Texas and Georgia and the SEC doesn't mean something here, but they have the juice to be able to be like, no, we'll take the big, we'll go for the diamonds.
There's nothing wrong with rubies. There's nothing wrong if your depth gets better because the players you add that might be starters, and probably, I'm unsure if they add 8 or 10 in the portal, I would think 4 to 5 of them will be starters. Texas has a loaded roster, and so does Georgia, and they're going to have more than 3 or 4 guys who come in that will eventually start for them, if not right off the top of the depth chart.
Yeah, this is the way college football is now, is it's geared for the Blue Bloods to never fall off, really. If you lose a bunch of talent like Texas just lost, you point to Jonte Cooks and to your young running backs that you got a little taste of, and, of course, Quinn Ewers coming back, and you have all these reasons to be excited anyways, regardless, but that you'd still have a lot of experience to replace, and now you just go and grab guys to replace the guys that you just lost, and you go get them from programs like Alabama, as Texas has done at least 5 times now, or close to 5 times now, it seems like. They've got to be approaching a handful of guys, I would think, at this stage from the last couple of years, and so you just reload. If you don't have the talent at a big school these days, then you are I'm sure on the hot seat, because there's no excuse to not have that talent unless your NIL collective is completely revolting against you, which means you're probably on your way out anyways. There's no reason for a big school to not be involved, guys. And there's no reason for you to ever have it's going to take a couple of years, barring a massive coaching change, and even then, you just step in and you start spending money, and you can do that now. Whereas, back in the day, to sound like an old person, but that's where we are now. But back in the day, 5-10 years ago, you botched a recruiting class, you might suffer for like 2 seasons because of that, because your depth's all screwed up. You don't have the right guy at certain positions, and you missed on your targets, and that could come back and bite you. And now it's like, oh, we missed a wide receiver. Let's go get the 3 best receivers possible. Let's go get so many receivers that are good, and plus what we have on campus, that we can have an Isaiah Nayor who doesn't do anything the entire year, right? I mean, that's how it is for a program like Texas.
Didn't miss a beat with that. Yeah, they didn't miss a beat, even though he never played.
No, they just moved on. They went and got A.D. Mitchell. Like, okay, whatever, and they just kept it pushing. So that's what it's going to be like for Texas, I would think, and for an Alabama. So long as Kalen DeBoer keeps the thing on the tracks here for the immediate future. Georgia, obviously. I mean, name the schools. It's the same schools that are the top of the list of everything in college football. It's now to where the recruiting already was advantageous just because of the brand name and awareness and the history and all that. But now you throw in the NIL part of it and the transfer part of it, and there really is zero reason to be deficient of talent or to not be able to replace certain positions. Now, that being said, doesn't guarantee that the guys you bring are going to do that. Like, if you could bring in 3 wide receivers and they don't end up working out that well for you, but Sark knows offensive talent, so I'm not too worried about that. So that's the world we live in now, where you can overcome those recruiting classes, and not that he's had to worry about that. I'm speaking in general, and yeah, that's just very interesting to watch. But they're losing a lot of talent. They're bringing in a lot of talent, and now going into the SEC, that's going to be a fascinating team to watch. Next season.
By the way, saying back to the Alabama story, the first guy we mentioned, this quarterback, this is the 26th player from Alabama to enter the portal, and also a second early enrollee in that Jameer Grimsley, the cornerback, who's a 4-star. One of the things, though, is I think what you're going to see is you're going to see this attrition, which is normal. You'd rather not see it, but it's normal. Washington's lost everybody but 2 starters since DeBoer decided to leave, some to the NFL, some to the transfer portal, some that have not yet made decisions in the portal. But what's going to happen? And then you kind of recover, and then you start adding, because there's going to be another time when the portal's open, and they'll be fine. It's not going to be the roster they had 3 weeks ago, but they're going to be fine. It'll be interesting to see what Jed Fish does, and DeBoer too.
Yeah, I mean, Washington was going to lose a bunch of guys no matter what. I mean, so if Kalen DeBoer was there, he would be as active in the portal maybe as he is at Alabama, just because they were going to lose a ton of starters. They had, he had built that a lot through the portal, and those guys were veterans and their eligibility is up. And even if they're the ones whose eligibility wasn't up, they were so damn good that, you're going to go cash your check right now when you can and get your shot in the NFL. So he was doing that anyway. Arizona hasn't been hit quite as hard yet, and we'll see how that goes. But Alabama, I mean, this is also just the build-up. Some of this is a backlog of the portal gods demand sacrifices from everybody, and Nick Saban was able to stave it off for the most part with minimal losses for years. And now, they're coming, so that's just how it works.
Last year, the story was mainly Colorado. We, of course, brought up what G.J. Kinney did at Texas State. There are other schools, many of them, that may be adding to the portal, but it just isn't quite as public or not as mentioned as much. Craig?
I will say the exception to what I'm talking about with a Texas or a brand of that level being able to reload is like a situation like Washington is in suddenly, where it's so late, or an Alabama. Now, give them time, and I think that they'll be able to very quickly through the portal recoup their losses and fill in those holes. But, so long as you have that continuity like Texas has now with the Steve Sarkisian, or a Georgia, or an Ohio State, so long as you have that continuity, I think that that is why you should stay in the game. But yeah, if you lose your coach, even if you're a big brand and it's in mid-January and everybody who's the top targets from the portal are already off the board, that does give you a little bit of an excuse as far as your roster goes. But having said that, you still, walking in as a Kalen DeBoer, have much better opportunities to correct that with the second portal cycle and with recruiting still being open and all that, as opposed to years ago when you were you're totally screwed the upcoming season and maybe even a second season.
There's a long way to go, though, till they have to really actually, the spring drill, sure. But then when everything begins in August and games start to be played, maybe that first week, last weekend in August. All right, so there's that.